technology. And so I guess that's where to begin. You know, one of the things that I've been pondering a good bit is how in the world this works. And the way this game works is with children and raising them, growing them up, is that there's this challenge of expecting them to know more than they actually know. And it's always a genuine problem that we might have. I see some people coming on, so I'm gonna mute you so I can kind of talk without having the kiddos hollering in the background. And muted you, Jody, too, so you can sneeze if you need to. But here's what I'm trying to get at. Kids really don't know what we know. They have to go through a process of learning, and one of the things we do as parents is we get a little impatient with them because we think they should know. I remember this is about 2 years ago, or maybe it was last year. So Brooks is 16ish or so, and he and I are out there, and we have a lawnmower. We have several acres here, and so we have to mow it periodically with a riding lawnmower. There's no way it would take a day to mow 4 acres, I think. And so we're out there, and the battery had died. It'd been a winter or something like that, and so we got the jumper cables out. We hooked it to the car, and we're going to put the jumper cables on there, and I explained red on positive, and it was all fine, except then Brooks is sitting there holding these 2 cables, and he touches them together, and they blow sparks everywhere. Well, guess what? That is exactly what the challenge is. He'd never touched cables in life. He wasn't thinking about electricity, about circuits, or whatever. That would be easy for me to think, are you not so smart? You don't know about cables? And the fact is, knowledge like that for humans is not intuitive. They actually have to know. And a lot of what we wrestle through as moms and dads in life is that challenge of recognizing they're just 4, they're just 7, they're just 8. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes I've watched a lot of parents do is they decide their kids are geniuses. And let me tell you, all of our kids are geniuses in some way at something. But they decide they're geniuses, and in that decision, they do something very strange. And that is they start interacting with the child as though they're adults. And that puts a really frustrating pressure on a kid, because then if they don't learn something like I did, and I didn't learn long division in 5th grade. I didn't get it. I don't know how. I was playing around, sleep at the wheel. I don't know what I was doing. But he showed up in 6th grade, and then I had to get tutored. Well, you know, as I had to process that, I learned how to do long division. It was really quite cool. But learning to be patient with our kids, recognizing exactly where they are in the process, is really strategic, really foundational. So, Jody, what do you want to add to that? Well, hang on a second. I apparently muted you, and I apparently don't know how to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself? You probably have a little button there.
But it went away, so I'm.
There you go. You did great.
All right. Cool. No, I think that's really important. A lot of times when we hear from people, it sounds like they may be expecting too much from their kids or too little. So, reality check is, you know, they can only do what they can do, and you know. I think sometimes when you have a bunch of kids too, you think you've taught them all something when the littlest ones may be lost out. Whoa.
Yeah, that's an important point. Develop that one.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback, so it's just a little bit. There are a lot of times, I think, not necessarily with school stuff, but that would apply too, but just life skills and all. You think well, gosh, you know, they should know this, and then you can stand back and maybe you really hadn't taught them, or if they don't know and you think you've taught them, then you really haven't taught them. You need to start back and not be frustrated that they don't know. Just start over, start back, don't skip.
Well, yeah, I think of things with Brooks or with Holmes, that we thought everybody had learned. Now, when you have 5 kids, the nice thing is the older ones do tend to tell the younger ones what's going on. But a lot of times you don't. They just they skip it, and so they don't get the opportunity to catch on that this is how we do it. This is kind of the value of having chores. I know you graduated people through chores that they would, somebody would set the table, and it seems like later it was somebody else's duty, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, is that how the game works? Do you ever did you ever think about that intentionally?
Well, there were definitely some things that were progressive as far as age and skill abilities. Then there were other things that just everybody had to do, even if you felt like you outgrew it. Um, but yeah, you just little ones aren't going to be able to do the things bigger ones can do as far as school or home or anything, but they can work into it. They can apprentice and
Great. And I think when we think with intention that way as moms and dads, it helps a great deal. So today, let me switch back and see if I can. Jody,
I just lost.
you might want to close the blinds behind you.
Okay, I
They're a
can
little
do that.
blinding. And I'll switch back to me. And I have just a few more little things I want to mention here. A little while ago, set up back, I used these guest check items to make lists. And so what I do with these is just kind of brainstorm ideas. And I sat down and thought through what we might want to talk about in these kind of meetings. And I just thought 10 family success topics. And when I use success, I mean it, in the generic sense of the word, as opposed to fail. I'm not talking about self-help and success and yay us and look in the mirror every day and saying, you good-looking thing, don't you ever die. I'm talking about something more subtle or simple. And so in understanding that, what I'm wanting us to think about are topics like these. So I have down here, number one, let me just give you this list real quick. Number one, always first assume it's behavior or learning. I'm going to come back to that one because it's really important. But you always want to, in interacting with issues with their kids, assume it's something about what they need to learn. Number two, scheduling. This is always a issue and a frustration. Some of us are more spontaneous, like me, and some of us like to schedule a little more. We can get in the ditch of being over, almost like the military, or so loosey-goosey things simply don't get done. A third topic I thought is valuable to think through is motivating children. A fourth one is relaxing as a parent, chilling out, chillaxing. Number five, excuse me, our priority of safety and what we model in the home. There's a little trick to that I'll mention. Problem solving, how do you approach problems to come up with a solution that really works. Communication, and what the most important thing I think for a family to do in this area of communication is. Decision making. How do you go about deciding things or teaching your children to decide things? Most of us use the old Pong game, boop, 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 meaning kind of a pro-con list. And that's really is kind of frustrating because you can see it this way, and then you can see it that way, and then you can see it this way, and then you can see it that way. I think reading in general is a worthy topic, not only just simply that it's important, but reading in terms of how do you approach reading to the kids and as they read, and how do you interact with them in a way that gets them to understand the book. And of course, finally, goal setting. That I think is a particularly big deal. So what I am wanting to do is I want to share very briefly one more time this one first point. And after I do that, as you join calls, join in, I'll mute people. But if you have a question or something like you'd like to share, I want you to make use, if you can, of the chat. I hope it's uh, working. So if you would just, would you type in there where you are from? Hello, I'm going to put, I live in New Braunfels, Texas, which is near San Antonio. So I'm hoping that people can see that. If not, I've got to use a different chat button, and you'll be gracious and patient as I figure that piece out. So, Jody, did you type something in? Yeah, yeah. Well, Lila Stegberg did. She's in Sela. I'm sorry. I grew up in Alabama. There's not much of a chance I'm going to say that quite right, which is in the center of Washington State. Well, cool. So that's a real mission field up there in the great Northwest. From our viewpoint, is in Texas. It's a whole another world like the Northeast. So we're glad you're with us. So the chat feature is working. All right. So here's what I want to mention. Always first assume it's behavior. Now here's what I want you to appreciate. Children's behavior can be caused by one or multiple things. For example, if you have and I'm talking about behavior problems, but if you have something going on in a human being that is disruptive, it could be something like neurochemistry. The way psychologists like to talk about things, they could have something psychotic going on. That was a pretty good psychotic picture. Psychotic going on, which is a design or dysfunction issue. Something neurotic is more trained, but still frustrating. It could be, we've had lots of friends with medical type issues, allergies, and different dynamics with their physical body that until they adjusted diet or added supplements, something didn't change. It may be some habits or maybe just an overstimulated environment. Sometimes relationships in the home can create a kind of acting out. As kids get older, if they put drugs and alcohol into their systems, that certainly manipulates things. Not something going on with their body, but something external that makes something go on with their body. So all those things are valid. Now, and I'll tell you, I'm not dismissing nutrition. I'm not dismissing aromatherapy. I'm not dismissing chiropractic adjustments or medical doctors or conditions. And I was thinking this afternoon, our German Shepherd, we have two, and one's a white German Shepherd, Lily. And Lily, 2 months ago, about a year ago, started limping really bad. And it was so bad, she was starting to look like she wasn't going to be able to get up. And so we took her to the doctor, and it's what we suspected, hip dysplasia in this German Shepherd, and it can get really bad. It's quite a challenge. So what we did was started giving her glucosamine. And it's amazing. The glucosamine absolutely transformed that dog. You could not possibly look at her and tell anything's going on wrong with her. There's no way. She is vibrant and running and plays with the other dog and fetches the ball and does everything. But you add that glucosamine that's got some MSN or MSM in it too. But we were doing glucosamine alone for a while, and it affected her. So don't dismiss with your children you can have something medical going on. Sometimes they really do need sleep. Sometimes they really do need to eat something. However, what I've found is, especially in our culture, we tend to bypass the importance of children simply needing to learn some better habits. They can learn to behave. We know this because most of our kids go to people's houses and they behave better than they do at ours. I don't know if you noticed that. And that's because they're not unsmart. They don't know the game there. So they can rein themselves in and learn to behave. And all of us have to do that if we're going to go to a symphony or an opera or someplace nice. We have to learn to behave. And so I just want to encourage you to recognize that the best strategy is to assume there's something that needs to be learned. Don't dismiss the other things, but it needs to be learned. One of the common things I've done throughout my life has been to do a lot of counseling and coaching of people, and one of the things I run into is depression. And I never really fought hard to tell people not to take antidepressants. However, I, along with I think most everyone, I hope, understand that taking an antidepressant by itself is not a solution. It's not that you were just born without enough of that chemical, serotonin uptake or something. The trick is you want to learn to run your own brain, your own emotions, and figure out how that works so that the neurochemical dynamic is something that brings it in range, but you still have to learn. And so in general with parenting, if we're going to prepare these children for life, we're much better off looking at parenting and behavioral issues and what we hope and want, reading, writing, arithmetic, math, getting along with people, communication, etc. We're much better saying there's something that needs to be learned is our first strategy and ongoing strategy, and then seeing the rest of it supplement. Whew, so I'm through with that speech. Jody, do you want to add anything to that? You'll need to unmute yourself.
There. I think that's exactly right. You want to start. I mean, I think everybody realizes now, like something like ADHD or something. You want to start with the least amount of invasiveness in their lives to try to correct it, and go toward, try this, try that, try this, try that, before you want to do more extreme things like medicine. And
exactly. So here's what I'd like to do. I think about. I wish you would, if you have one that pops in your mind. Examples of challenges we had, like Holmes. I'll think of Holmes. I'll pick on him. He may be online listening, so I need to apologize. But Holmes had a terrible problem growing up, and here's how he started his day. This would be the first half hour of writing, just asleep. He wasn't mad. He wasn't upset. He just would pass out. He's not really a morning person. I'm not sure which part of the day he is, but we had to learn to help him come up with ways to get himself to wake up. He didn't have a caffeine deficit. He didn't have something like that. He just needed to learn how to get himself going. And oddly enough, what changed it for him more than anything, I think, Jody, was putting a timer on him for getting his writing assignment, because we start out with writing in our home school. And as a result, I think he wakes himself up. I mean, when he's sleepy, he can't help it. But that's the way you have to think. What behavioral learning can we go through here to help this child become the young man or young woman that we think they're really capable of being, to contribute positively to this world?
Right, and we'll put in there that we did start school at 7:30 in the morning, so it's not that it was early, but it also wasn't late, and we expected them to all start at the same time. And yeah, when we Holmes would get down there, and if we would say, write, how much can you write, and set the timer, and then reset it, he did great.
Well, and you can be honest about the simple fact that we also didn't let them stay up forever at night either. They went on to bed.
Right.
So that's all part of it.
Okay, yeah, he could sleep through like 3 alarm clocks.
Yeah, he can do that. It may be a gift of his, the more I think about it. Okay, so here's what we need. We need questions, and you can type them in chat, or if you're interested, I can unmute you and you can talk. I don't want to put pressure or bother anybody. I can see Lila or Leela and Monica. If you want to talk or ask something or pitch in on this, then all I need you to do is chat, something like unmute me or something like that. But I did see a question. Where'd that show up? Here we go. What about someone who starts the day in a bad mood and doesn't want to change it? What a great question. And does this bad mood last all day, or does it ever go away? Is it just the kind of thing that sticks around, or does it drift through?
And while she's typing that, it'd be, is it a bad mood or just not a happy mood? It gets back to our thing about what do you want from them. So you've got to figure out what you want from them rather than just a not, I don't want you to be in a bad mood. Then what do you want from them? What is that going to look like?
So how do you think about that, Jody, with the kids?
Sorry. Yeah, I think that you're the one that helped me do that, is you just have to really get a picture in your head, what do I want? And then explain, show, demonstrate to the kid, this is what we want from you. You're doing this. We aren't accepting that. This is what we want from you. And really, I think the more matter of fact things, like you can understand if you're in a bad mood or you're not happy, but we're all here together and we're doing this, and you go get unhappy really fast. You have like 2 minutes to be as unhappy as you want, and then when you come back out here to this room with us, this is what we want to see, and whether it's smiling or whether it's yes ma'ams or whatever. But it's just, no, we're not going to do this. You can get ungrumpy however you want to do it. I can give you some suggestions of how to get ungrumpy, but we're just not going to do this.
So how'd that work for you?
I think the more matter of fact that we made things, the better it was, instead of making the thing a big issue, like why are they unhappy, or when it can really just be a matter of fact thing.
Yeah, one of the things that we told the kids early on, all of them, and this would be a specific to-do, a habit, and that is, I sat there with all of them when they were young, and I'd go over this over and over. They don't know when I told them this because they've heard it so many times. But I would tell the kids, I'd say, we're going to tell you something that most parents never, ever tell their children. And this is going to be really powerful, and it's going to change your life. And so they'd get kind of interested. And I'd say, you have something called a will. Do you know what that is? And I usually tell them young enough that they go, not really. And I'd say, well, let me show you. Raise your hand. And I'd say, no, the other hand. And they raise their hand. And raise your foot. And they'd raise their foot. And put your foot back down. And close your eyes. And open your eyes. And they'd do all that. And I'd say, how'd you do that? And they'd say, I don't know, I just did it. And I'd say, that's it. You have this ability to make some choices in your life. And what happens with things when that's applied to things like mood, you've got a mood. Who knows why? Maybe you ate too much something the night before. Maybe you got up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe it could be anything. Who knows? But your mood doesn't simply have to stay there. You're not a victim. You're not walking through life like a fish in an aquarium and you swim too close to another fish with ick on it, and the ick jumps off onto you, and now you're messed up and, oh, I've got ick. You have the opportunity, the ability to figure out how to wake yourself up. I mean, that's why we've done this emotions course, how to run your emotions, because there are ways in which you can direct your mind and think things through to absolutely kind of snap yourself out of it. The other thing we did, Jody, you might tell everybody, is sometimes when they're really in bad moods, what would we get them to do?
We would say, okay, jump up and down with your arms up in the air and say, at least my armpits don't stink, at least my armpits don't stink, and do that 3 or 4 times, and they're cracking up. They can't stand themselves. They're laughing, and, just snap out of that mood.
Exactly. That's exactly the kind of thing that we could easily see happen. So let's see. There's and by the way, habit was brought up. Someone mentioned that. Look, that's really the trick. It's not going to be the first time and the second time, the third time. It's going to be over and over and over again. This is part of what moms and dads do. My parents, I think because they were lazy, not because they were visionaries, did a very visionary thing. And they, and I mean lazy in the most respectful parental sense of the word, but it was incessant that my parents would say, look it up. Look it up. How do you spell this? What does this mean? Look it up. Look it up. Now the internet makes that way easier. In those days, we had to like climb the cabinet and get a dictionary out, look for it, and I never could look up words in dictionaries because I always looked up 4, 5, 6, 8 words on the way. It's just my, you know, attention deficit. Oh, squirrel! I had my ADOS that I wrestle with. But I learned a lot of words that way. But that habit eventually settled into me, and I just look stuff up. People in this house still, not like I do, they'll mention a word or something, and I'll look it up. I'll see if we used it right or some factoid on something or what something is. And it's because I got this habit ingrained in me to just look it up and find it out. And so this kind of stuff about mood, etc., it's not going to be magic the first day. If it is, fine. But it's going to be, look, go get a grip, go work on your mood, and come back when you're cheerier. I think we did that on more than 1,000 occasions. Don't you think, Jody? Did I lose you? Jody?
Well, and you can also build, yeah, and I mean, and you can also, the whole, hear me? Can you hear me?
Sorta, you're glitchy.
I don't know what to do. Let's
You're doing
just
fine.
reward what gets rewarded gets done. So if this is a really big thing and you want to train them, build in some rewards for good mood, mood rewards, and some punishment for bad moods, or
Punishment.
what? Sure.
I'm just playing with you. Yeah, some consequences.
Yeah.
Usually it's just something they don't like. You know, all of our kids, we could motivate them by writing essays about something they weren't interested in writing about. For some reason, that seemed to work. Okay, Monica throws out learning from everyone. I try to have mine begin the day with things to accomplish, list, to-do list. Everyone fights this. Any suggestions to encourage this habit? Break the pattern. She's breaking up. Yeah, Jody was breaking up. So I'll come back to that. But Monica's, yeah, you know, Monica, this idea of a to-do list, I spent a fair amount of time wrestling with this, and I've about convinced myself that to-do lists are from the Dark Lord. They don't help us. There's a rare human being like my mother who uses them right, but to-do lists themselves, what you're trying to get to is good. I'm just going to give you an option, okay? So a to-do list, the way we traditionally mean it, is we get a sheet of paper out, right? And I have a pen somewhere, but you know, we write to do. I'm going to do this thing today, and this thing today, and this thing, and this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing. And what happens is it starts to become a list of all the things we don't get done in the day. We get a few of them done, but we don't get it. And then we keep adding to it, and we keep adding to it. And then it's depressing. We're also training ourselves that we don't have to get everything done on it. I mean, we just don't. What I recommend doing instead is to, hey, I'm going to try some technology. There's just no chance this is going to work. So it'll be a great experiment, right? We just want to try, you know, start out, and if it fails, it fails, and we'll just see what happens. So let's see if I can share my whole screen here. Just show you what I would suggest. See if this pulls off. I'm gaining on it. Just give me just a second. Here we go. Okay, so here's what I recommend. If I can get this to, yeah, I got to put it the correct way over here. So I've got a pen, don't I? Look at this. This is all so cool. See, I love technology. If it ever works for me.
Yeah.
Now, Jody, be sweet. Okay, so what I do is I actually recommend getting your list together this way. So we're going to make 3 lists. Jody, can you see that?
Yes.
Great. And so this middle column is where you start, and it's going to be around the word want to, okay, the phrase. We might call it a want to do. And the want to do list is going to be the things that you want to do in a way, because what I've found is that human beings basically do what they want to do. In fact, in motivating children, the whole secret is getting them to want to do what you want them to do. Most people, when we procrastinate and when we don't get things done, it's because we don't want to. For example, I'll pick on Jody. So Jody, we have a few little repairs around here we need somebody to do, and we found somebody that does that kind of work, and it'd be great to do, but so far Jody has not gotten that lined up, right, Jody?
Right.
Okay, I'm not picking on you because we talked about
I
it.
know. I know.
Yeah. However, and
I own
part
it.
of it is because she thought she was going to have to buy some wood and figure out some things, and she wasn't. But she also, yesterday, after I went to the dentist and she before, and we had a conversation about it, decided their dentist sells Sonicare to us for like half the price, and we hadn't had one in 8 years, and it's time for us to behave a little better. So Jody made arrangements to get my son to pick up a Sonicare, and it's at our house now. So I can deduce from that that Jody really wanted that Sonicare. Am I wrong?
I guess that's fair.
Yeah, and not so sure she wants the repairman coming around her house fixing things. But that's okay. It's all part of learning to be honest, because honesty would tell us that you want to do certain things and don't want. Well, start out the day this way with this middle column. I want to, you know, if it's your kid, I want to read, what is it, LTR, if that's a book, The Lord of the Rings, something like that. I do. You're gonna need to make your bed. Do you want to? Not really. Or you know, we get dessert if we clean our rooms today. Oh yeah. So make, right? Make bed. All right. So make bed. Maybe it's they're gonna plan a party they're doing, or tea. Plan the tea that they want to do. I'm just making up stuff. And here's another one. Here are all the things they want to do. And just like going to a restaurant that's like all you can eat, you're going to want more than you can eat. So the want to list is the first list. From there, you're going to separate it into one of two categories. One is will do, and I know this set looks complicated. It's not at all. Will do and won't do. And the trick to this is this will do thing is actually something you and I don't realize we have the power. Because when you look at anything that you have to do in a day, we can ask a question, will you do that? And you'll say either yes or maybe. And if you say something like maybe, here's what I would say to you. See if this pulls off. If you say maybe, etc., I'd ask this word or this question. Really? In other words, I'm going to go check on Mother's garden. Really? Yes. Really? Yes. Okay, well, put that over on the will do side. But something else, if you say really, and you go, I don't know, and I go, really? And you go, nah, I don't know. It works the exact same way with won't. Because when you can admit that, you know, are you going to plan that tea today, and it turns out to be no, really, really no, I'm not going to. Well, you know what? That gets crossed out, and it gets over here. Plan the tea. And once you know that you won't do that, you just had energy freed up in your life, right? And that energy makes you happy, and you can spend energy on the other things you want to. So here's all I'm getting at. I would put all my energy in, and what I've tried to encourage the family, and Jody will tell you I've encouraged this, and I've trained a lot of people with it, is just simply this, oh, I can't get over here, this thing right here. This, see if I can draw it like that. There you go. This will-do list. That's really all you want in a day, is what are the things you will get done. And at first it'll be too many. But if you get your kids in a habit of making a list of just what they will do, you'll find once they start learning how to accomplish that, they can get very accurate about what they can accomplish in a day. And they won't feel guilty and stressed out and burned out and frustrated and train themselves that you just keep adding to a list and it doesn't matter if it gets done. This trains them in commitment as well, which is really, I think, quite cool.
Well, and Fred, and talk about the want to for a kid, like school might be on that want in the middle there, but they might say, I don't really want to, but
Yeah, and we have that same kind of lesson. Monica points out, do you have the goal of dessert or task? I threw that in because somebody we were coaching recently, their weekly was the Friday dessert that related to chores for their family, and you get to figure out your own stuff. Do you have a goal of dessert for the task? What kids really want to do? What kids really want to do their math and lessons? That's a great question. So Jody, what of our kids really wanted to do their math and lessons? And be honest, because some did. Did I lose you? I must have. Yeah, Jody, for some
well,
reason,
you
I
said,
don't hear you.
I think Brett probably did. Well, I'm not seeing the little thing, but you were also very breaking up. Okay, now
You're doing
you
great.
can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a couple of ours, Tripp probably wanted to, Brooks probably wanted to, maybe Forrest reading, not math. Um, but yeah, I just think the go ahead.
Yeah, what we found is all of our kids more or less wanted to, because the way we designed the system is that if they would work on it, they could be done with it and be on to other things they enjoyed. And so we had a system where our kids would get through with school around 12:30 or 1, let's say, and then they were done with school for the rest of the day. Am I breaking up, or is that good?
No, that's good. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is something we'll do in the goal setting training is there are actually two choices. Monica's question is really phenomenal because this is what it gets down to. There's always what's called a primary choice and a secondary choice. And a primary choice is something you want, and a secondary choice is something you don't want, but you sort of do because it serves this. The example I like to use was me and Spanish. So I'm in college studying English literature. I have to have Spanish or some language, and I picked Spanish. I don't, I'd had some in high school, I guess. I had Latin and some other things, but I didn't expect to use Spanish. I was going to practice law in Anniston, Alabama, and I wasn't thinking I'd live in San Antonio. So I didn't really find Spanish jazzing me. But you know what? I wanted to complete Spanish because I wanted to graduate. And that's the way it works with kids. They may not want to do math, but if you hang in there with them and realize that, look, this is part of the game, and when you get the math done, you can get on to other stuff. What happens to people, especially those that knack for it, get to where they really actually kind of like it. And I know Tripp did. I know Brooks did. I asked him today about it on another conversation, and he would say he liked to do math. It would frustrate and bug him, but he liked to do it. Not the first day, not the 5th day, but in time you do things externally because the environment requires it, and then you internalize it and you own it. And that's the sequence I think we're going through. Okay, so go dessert or task. Oh, and so back to the dessert or task, Monica's other thought. Sometimes we would do that stuff, but we never made it stay as a ongoing pattern. Kind of like I kind of caught on this from learning about the way they train dolphins. And I'm not trying to insult dolphins by comparing them to children. They're far more noble, aren't they? But dolphins, they found if they offered them the same number of fish every time, they just jump a little lower, then a little lower, then a little lower. And so they start mixing up. Sometimes they get 3, sometimes they
I'm not hearing you right now, Fred. I don't know if everybody else is. Can you hear me? Okay, okay. Can you
I think I just blew up.
trying to see if anybody could hear you? Nothing's.
No, my computer just blew up.
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
switch you to you?
Well, I don't know.
You don't know how to do this?
Because I just all of a sudden couldn't hear me either.
Hey, gang, I don't know what happened at all. My computer truly just, I haven't seen this in 5 years, I don't think. I must have been saying something really important, so the Dark Lord attacked me. So, what I was trying to say is dolphins, for example, will jump a certain height and then more if you give them 2 fish, if you give them 3 fish, if you give them 0. If you mix it up, it changes the game. So if we use rewards with kids, I think that's fine, but they need to be temporary, and they're going to be relative to the kid. If you make the reward an ongoing thing, it loses its charm. It kind of becomes an entitlement or an expectation. So that'd kind of be the crux of that. Let me go back here. We can pull this off on Jody's computer. Suddenly my monitor went out and my computer shut off. I've never seen anything quite like that. So, yeah, short-term goals, as Monica said, I think that's right. So, let me back up here. Working as hard. World. Well, my network. I see. I think I'm coming back now. Finally. So Monica points out that mine are still young and can't see the vision or the faraway goal. That's a really important point. Young children, and especially ADD-ish, distracted children, don't think long-term very easily. They think very short-term. And that's a lot of what we're trying to do is build habits into their lives so that they can genuinely and honestly get it down to a level where they're not having to really understand the whole vision. They just know to do their work. And even in college, when a child just knows how to sit down, a young adult, and just do their work, things tend to work out for them. You can talk about long-term goals, but I think that's a really valuable understanding that most of what you're trying to do with a child is not get through all of math, but get through, to Christmas, or more narrowly, this next segment, or maybe this next lesson, or the next number of problems, because that's what everything breaks down to. You can pitch in from the side if you want to. I'm glad we had a backup computer. I'm sad about this, but it's all going to be okay. Let's see. Lila, I apologize, said, I've always found that it isn't that learning that is so much fun, it's having learned. And I think that's fair. I have a friend who says he doesn't like to write, but he likes to have written. That may be true, but generally we can get engaged in the process. And usually it's a matter of challenge. If we give our children something that is too challenging, just turn that light on. It's something that's too challenging. It gives them anxiety, basically. Maybe that was a bad idea, Jody. Go back.
That's what
if you give a challenge that's beyond their skill level, it will create anxiety. if you don't challenge them enough, they'll be bored. So kind of what they look for is this midline of a graph called this flow state, and it's a balance between challenge and their competency, their ability to do something. So we're always wanting to continue to do that. If children are getting bored with reading, it might be because it's a non-interesting book, but it's probably because the books are too easy. If they get frustrated with reading, your books may be too hard for them at that stage. So it's the kind of thing I think you really want to pay attention to. Yeah. Repeat after me. Computer. Let's see. Or the patient computer is trying to do all can. That's okay. So here's a question, Jody. How come a kid who is so easily bored can get involved in a video game and play it for 8 hours straight?
Oh gosh.
You answer that for a second. Let me see if I can get back on.
All right, switching out. Fred's trying to back his computer. The why, I'm not sure of the why, except that he wants to do the video game. He likes to do them, and no way would I ever let him do them for anywhere near 8 hours straight. Oh my gosh, that's kind of blowing my mind. I hope that's not allowed, but if it is, start cutting it back. Yeah, it'd be like this, because kids, if you let them eat whatever they want, they'd probably eat candy all day long. They'd watch TV. They'd do video games. You know, they're kids, and we're training. That's why we're training them to make better choices. And the older they get, they can, you know, begin to internalize those choices for themselves and know, you know, why they're choosing the good things and the right things. That's why so much of young children, it's